Hello, Josie Wales here and welcome to this combat mission battle for Normandy after action report. This was a head-to-head battle against HauptmannKyle from the Few Good Men forums. And it's a quick battle meeting engagement where I am playing as the Germans and HauptmannKyle is playing as the US Army. The mission is to take and hold the two objectives towards the centre of the map. I have designated the objective on my side of the river as Objective Tango, and the one on the opposite side of the river as Objective Oscar. As it's a meeting engagement, my opponent will be starting at the opposite end of the map. Force selection was set to tiny with strict rarity, so I'm expecting my opponent to bring a fairly standard US rifle company. The terrain is undulating with small bits of woodland dotted around. The main terrain feature is the river, which runs north to south and splits the map in two. There are no bridges on this map, however the river is fordable at the two locations shown. Both infantry and vehicles should be able to cross the fords, however of course they are bottlenecks and therefore prime locations for setting an ambush. I have identified one piece of key terrain on this map designated KT1. KT1 is a piece of high ground covered with trees that gives very good observation into my side of the river, allowing my opponent to see pretty much every avenue of approach I might take. I have brought along a regular company of panzergrenadiers. First and second platoon are in the bottom left hand corner of the map. Both platoons are dismounted. Third platoon are in the bottom right hand corner of the map and they are mounted up in half tracks. I have a total of 4 support half tracks. I also have one mortar platoon HQ with access to 2 off-map 81mm mortars. I've also brought along the battalion HQ and 2 Stummels, which are half tracks mounted with the 75mm howitzer. Looking at a top-down view of the map, my start position is on the left and my opponent is on the right, and the two objectives are towards the centre. It can be seen that both objectives are slightly nearer to my opponent's end of the map than they are mine. I have further to travel to get to both of the objectives. In addition, my opponent will be able to cross the ford in the top right of the picture before I can cross the ford in the bottom left of the picture. For this reason, I am not going to treat this battle as a standard meeting engagement. Instead, I am going to assume that my opponent is able to get to both objectives before me, which means I shall treat this battle as an attack. I shall focus on the left flank, where I shall move down that flank, keeping out of sight of KT1, and attack Objective Tango, which is on my side of the river. The time is 1200 hours, and I have 45 minutes to complete the objectives. Third platoon in the half tracks being kept in reserve. They move into the woods as a precaution against enemy air cover. One squad from 3rd platoon sets up an observation post to monitor the rightmost river crossing. The Stummels and the other 2 panzergrenadier platoons push on the left flank. One of 3rd platoon's half track is in support. One of the squads from 2nd platoon uses alternate bounding to manoeuvre towards the woods by the river, which are expected to be occupied by enemy infantry. They make contact with US riflemen. Second squad push up with one of the half tracks. Third squad manoeuvre to cover the right flank of this attack and engage US infantry on the Tango objective. Smoke is used to provide concealment for the attack on the left from US infantry on the objective. First platoon now also move up into the woods. The fighting is close range and bloody. The platoon HQs move up to support the squads, as does the half-track. And the two platoons start to get the upper hand. One of the Stummels moves up to engage US infantry on the Tango objective. In the woods, every inch is paid for in blood. And so 3rd Platoon are moved out of their concealment to assist with the attack on the left flank. The Mortar Platoon HQ calls for a fire mission on the objective, however the first round is way off. Strategic Update 1. 12:10 hours, 10 minutes into battle. One squad from 3rd Platoon are still on the right hand flank, where they are acting as an observation and listening post for anything that may be crossing the right hand ford. Centre right, I have the Mortar Platoon HQ calling in a fire mission on the Tango objective. Centre left, I have the battalion and company HQs and their 2 ICs. And 3rd Platoon are in the half tracks, making their way over to the left flank. Zooming in, we can get a better look at the Tango objective and the conflict that is going on around it. 2nd Platoon were the ones that made initial contact, and they are on the far left flank, with 1st Platoon on their right flank pushing towards the objective. The 2 Stummels are in support, and the one on the right has been putting fire down onto US infantry. Keeping with the initial plan, 1st and 2nd Platoon will continue to push through the woods, clear it out and move on to the objective. When 3rd Platoon arrive, they will be used to ensure that the US forces in the woods are overwhelmed. There is a risk that my opponent will be able to support his troops on Objective Tango with his troops on Objective Oscar and KT-1. And there is also the risk posed by an attack across the river on my left flank as I advance onto the objective. As 3rd Platoon arrive on the left, a forbidding sound is heard in the skies. All units dash for cover. As 2nd Platoon push through the woods on the left, they spot an abandoned truck on this side of the river. A quick burst from an MP40 ruptures the fuel tank. The mortar spotting rounds start edging closer to the objective. On the left, 3rd Platoon take the lead through the woods. Progress is good, but it's taking its toll on some of the regulars who try and get out of harm's way. The American air cover appears to be attacking his own troops. 3rd Platoon continue to steadily advance through the woods with support from their half-tracks. Resistance starts to slacken off. helped by another strafing run from the pilot who attacked his own troops' positions again. A medium machine gun team and another truck are spotted on this side of the river. A second machine gun and some US riflemen are spotted on the far bank. The mortars at last start to hit the objective Tango. The company commander spots a Greyhound on the objective. A mortar round lands nearby, but it's unlikely to have caused any damage. The company temporarily pauses the attack in the woods to catch their breath, deal with casualties and recover MG42s and ammo from their fallen comrades. And as the mortars continue to trickle down onto the objective, the skies appear to have fallen silent. Once weapons and ammo are gathered, 1st and 3rd platoon continue through the woods. The last defenders pull back towards the objective. In the centre, the Battalion HQ, 2IC and Company HQ feint towards the eastern end of objective Tango. On the right flank, the detached squad from 3rd platoon hears a vehicle crossing the rightmost ford. Both Stummels move to hold down positions to engage the Greyhound. One Stummel down, but the second one has it covered. Oh bugger. The detached squad arrive a little too late to effectively harass the Greyhound commander. Strategic update 2, 12:23 hours, 23 minutes into battle. 3rd platoon's detached squad on the right were able to detect the crossing of the Greyhound. The Battalion HQ, 2IC and Company HQ have moved to a position just to the east of objective Tango. The reason for this was to try and make my opponent think that he was being attacked from the centre of the map as well as from his right flank. Zooming in closer to the Tango objective, we can see the 2 destroyed Stummels. Losing these 2 armoured vehicles is nothing short of an utter disaster. My opponent has at least 2 Greyhounds, and I have no real answer to this other than a handful of Panzerfausts. 2nd platoon are at the western end of the woods, with 1st and 3rd platoon pushing towards the Tango objective. There are 4 half tracks in the woods with the infantry to provide that extra bit of firepower. Pushing the Greyhound across the ford on my right flank was a pretty gutsy move by my opponent. I had wrongly assumed that doing so would be such a high risk strategy that it would not be attempted. So rather than having the crossing covered, the plan was that if anything did cross, I would be able to counter it by moving the Stummels into position pretty quickly. And although I was able to do this, the Greyhound was able to take out both of the Stummels before they could even get a round off. This has now left my right flank wide open to exploitation. The Greyhound can pretty much have a free run of this entire area. I only have 2 teams in the centre armed with Panzerfausts, and I have no Panzerschrecks or any other anti-tank capability. I can only hope that my opponent behaves in a cautious manner and doesn't fully exploit this excellent opportunity that he's created for himself. From the western side of the woods, 2nd Platoon are able to provide flank security and engage US infantry on the opposite side of the river. Most of the woods are now taken, and 2nd and 3rd Platoon are only yards away from the edge of the Tango objective. From here they will be able to put direct fire down onto the US infantry on the objective itself, being mindful of the nearby Greyhound and the potential for the Greyhound that crossed the ford to sweep up onto their right flank. The Greyhound on the right pushes up cautiously along the riverbank. This allows time for the 2 teams armed with Panzerfausts to get into good positions. Unfortunately, the first team is spotted. One casualty is sustained, but the soldier with the Panzerfaust manages to escape. The HQ units in the centre, used for the earlier feint, are in an increasingly dangerous situation. However, the Greyhound commander is temporarily distracted by the 2nd Panzerfaust team. Again, it causes 1 casualty, but the Panzerfaust armed grenadier also manages to escape. On the left, 2nd Platoon from the wood line engage US infantry across the river. Whilst 1st and 3rd Platoon reach the edge of the woods and the Tango objective. The US machine gun team attempt to ford the river to reinforce the objective. Pushing them back exposes 1st Platoon to return fire. But the machine gun team are prevented from making the crossing. One of the teams from 1st Platoon panics out into the open. There is some smoke, but not enough to conceal them. An attempt is made to push out of the northwest corner of the woods, but it fails. Fighting in this corner has been costly, and so the advance is temporarily halted. A desperate search for Panzerfausts amongst the casualties is undertaken. In the centre, US infantry on KT-1 fire across to the stranded HQ units, killing the battalion radio man. Then the Greyhound moves in to deliver the coup de grace. As one soldier manages to get away with his life, the two Panzerfaust teams move in on the distracted Greyhound. The Greyhound proves lethal to the exposed HQ elements. As it moves off, the Panzerfaust teams take their shot. The commander and loader are killed, but it still appears to be operative. Out of the 12 trapped HQ members, only 4 manage to get out. With no real answer to the Greyhound menace, a distraction plan is devised. One of the half-tracks crosses the left-hand forward to try and get into the enemy rear and draw armour away from the Tango objective. However, the slow crossing allows a bazooka team to get a hit. Strategic Update 3, 12:33 hours, 33 minutes into battle. On the right, the squad from 3rd Platoon is keeping a low profile and listening and observing. The Panzerfaust teams have moved back into cover in the centre after scoring a hit on the Greyhound, and the survivors from the HQ teams butchered by the Greyhound have moved into the woods on the left. Zooming in, we can see that the Panzergrenadier company has taken the woods completely. However, it has come at a cost, and 3rd Platoon have only a handful of men left. 2nd Platoon are still in reasonably good condition, and 1st Platoon are down to about half strength and have lost their platoon HQ. There are now only 2 half-tracks in the woods with the infantry, one having been destroyed at the river crossing and the other one having pulled back into the woods to the east. Zooming back out, we can see that the Greyhound that destroyed the 2 Stummels and took the Panzerfaust hit has moved on to Objective Tango, whilst the Greyhound that was on Objective Tango has now pulled back over the river. The only reason I can think of that my opponent has made this move is that he is predicting that an attack may come on the right hand forward, since this flank has been fairly quiet on my part, and that the Greyhound has been withdrawn to the rear so that it can counter any thrust that may be made across this ford. I have absolutely no intention of attacking across the right hand forward, so I am happy to let my opponent think that this might be happening. The fighting in the northwest corner of the woods on the edge of the Tango objective has been costly, and has become clear that I won't be able to break through here. Although I am running out of options in terms of firepower, I still have mobility in the form of 3 working half-tracks. So the plan is for one of the platoons to remain on the edge of the Tango objective, whilst getting the rest of the infantry in the woodland to mount up on the 2 half-tracks. Stragglers and survivors can mount up in the 3rd half-track further towards the rear. Then, using that mobility, an attempt will be made to gain a further foothold on the east side of the objective, as long as the damaged Greyhound continues to hide behind the woods, and the Greyhound that's moved to the rear stays out of the way. The assaulting half-tracks will only have to worry about small arms fire from KT-1, and of course have to deal with any infantry in the small patch of woods. Supporting fire from the centre and right will be used, and although I'm not expecting it to be that effective, it's better than nothing at all. As 1st Platoon is in pretty bad condition, it swaps its place with 2nd Platoon, so that 2nd now form the bulk of the assaulting force. The half-tracks pull back to the woodland at the rear to their jump-off positions. Once all 3 half-tracks are in position, the attack order is given. And just at the wrong time, the damaged Greyhound emerges from behind the woods. Although the small arms fire from KT-1 doesn't cause any damage or casualties, it spooks the driver of one of the half-tracks, who stops in open ground, forcing 2nd Platoon to dismount. The half-track driver coming up behind them does the same thing. The attack is stopped before it's even started. Despite this, one of the teams from 2nd Platoon manages to get onto the objective, running right under the nose of the damaged Greyhound. At the same time, another team armed with a Panzerfaust dash out of the woodland to try and take a pop at it. Although lined up, the panzergrenadier decides to get even closer. But once he does, he makes an odd choice. He finally does his job and makes the ultimate sacrifice. The team that makes it into the woods on the eastern end of the objective make a good account of themselves. Barely hanging on, they are unable to advance any further. With the attack in tatters and the emergence of the fully working Greyhound on KT-1, I propose a ceasefire, and my opponent accepts. It's a US Army major victory. I have 201 points, and HauptmannKyle has 574 points. I have 35 men OK, have taken 84 casualties, and have lost 3 armoured vehicles. HauptmannKyle has 92 men OK, has 60 casualties, and has lost 2 vehicles. He gets 200 points for the Oscar objective and 374 points for inflicting casualties on me. I get 0 points for the objectives, and the 201 points are caused by inflicting casualties on my opponent. Looking at the map, we reveal that we are still facing a relatively intact looking American rifle company. On the Tango objective are 2 platoons of around half to 3/4 strength, and over the river on objective Oscar is a pretty intact platoon. This Greyhound was the man of the match. It took out 2 Stummels in quick succession and also took 2 Panzerfausts and a hand grenade. The last Panzerfaust immobilised the vehicle and killed the driver, but the gunner is still alive and the gun is still working. I would like to say a very big thank you and a very well done to my opponent HauptmannKyle. He had read the terrain and situation very well and placed 2 platoons on the Tango objective, whilst keeping most of them out of sight so that I was not fully aware of that fact until the game ended. In hindsight, the right flank was less well defended. However, getting across that ford and attacking into that objective would have been very costly. And in reality, I lost the game once the 2 Stummels had been destroyed. After that, the firepower equation had swung massively in my opponent's favour. This game has made me realise what a great vehicle the Greyhound is. It punches well above its weight, and I would say outclasses any equivalent German armoured car or half-track vehicle. If you're playing as the Germans, to ensure victory against Greyhounds, you need tanks. But even then, there's no guarantee. There is a well-documented account that during the Battle of the Bulge, one of these vehicles and its brave crew took out a German King Tiger. I'll certainly be revising my force selection for the next time I think I'm up against Greyhounds. All that remains to say is that if you like what you've seen, please leave a like, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment. I'm Josie Wales, War is Hell. Thanks for watching.